MeMonster.
Chapter 321. Aaron clung desperately to the metal pillar, his knuckles white and his face drained of color. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he fought to keep his grip. I'm going to die. The capitalism tore through the city, heedless of the terror it inflicted on its passengers. If not for Aaron's rigorous physical training, he would have been flung from the airship long ago. But the results spoke for themselves. There was no longer any need to fight. The capitalism had no onboard defenses, yet not a single monster dared approach. Those that tried were violently hurled away by the ship's wild maneuvers. Thanks to that, the capitalism had blasted through Zone 2 and was now barreling toward its final destination. Ving! The wind howled so fiercely that Aaron's ears rang from the pressure. Yahoo! Jenna stood at the prow, feet planted wide, shouting with wild glee as she expertly balanced herself. Faster, Oppa! Faster! Shh! She's lost her mind, Rittigen muttered. Both Rittigen and Nihaku stared at her in utter disbelief. In the meantime, inside the control cabin, "Is everyone all right?" Sarah steadied herself, glancing around. The non-combat personnel were scattered across the floor, unconscious. Every time the ship jerked, their limp bodies rolled about like rag dolls. What kind of piloting is this? She'd never seen anything like it. At first, she thought they were trying to crash the ship on purpose. Thankfully, her fears were unfounded. The capitalism, in its own insane way, was making steady progress toward the target. Urnet. She was unharmed, using gravity magic to stay upright as she fed energy into Bifrost. Downloading 501329 of 547637. Estimated time remaining 5 minutes. The transmission was proceeding smoothly, if anything, ahead of schedule. Despite the chaos, Urnet remained fully focused. We're almost there. Be ready. In the corner, Kadio, tied to a pillar, finally spoke up, his voice steady even as the cabin shook. You've seen the situation panel, right? The airship can't enter the center of Zone 3. Saris nodded. Near the dimensional barrier separating Eden from the boundary realm, high-density interference pulses were deployed. No machines could function within that zone. From there, they'd have to proceed on foot. I'm only dropping you off at the entrance. After that, you're on your own. Thank you. It didn't matter where they came from. If not for their help, she would have been forced to take a much longer, more dangerous route. By now, she'd likely be struggling in some dark corner of the city. You better not screw this up, not after everything we've done. Kadio scratched his cheek, looking a little embarrassed. Boom! They'd been flying for who knows how long when a sudden shock rocked the entire deck, and Aaron blacked out for a moment. The airship had crashed into the ground. Screech! The capitalism's underside scraped across the concrete, shrieking as sparks burst from the friction. Shattered fragments of the ship flew in every direction, glowing red-hot. Damn it! Is it going to crash like this too? Rittigen shouted, teeth clenched. Jenna just grinned. Relax, relax. This way we go even farther. What if it explodes? Don't worry, I already shut the engine down. Shh. A hissing sound came from the rear of the ship. The Hell of Hell engine had powered down. They'd officially entered a zone where no flight was possible. Only then did anything let go of the controls. That was awesome. We got here so fast. Nihaku exhaled in awe. Despite having to swerve around monster swarms, the capitalism had covered several kilometers in under 10 minutes. All right, game over. Jenna tapped the deck with her foot. Aaron slowly rose, staggering. I never want to go through that again. Why not? It was fun. Foosh! Fire ignited across the deck, spreading rapidly. It's disposable, so it'll blow up soon. We have to get out. No sooner had she spoken than the side of the ship opened, forming a staircase. Rittigen leapt down first. Nihaku, Jenna, and Aaron quickly followed. After them, the control crew and the non-combat personnel began to evacuate. Saris was the last to step onto the road. Boom! Pop, pop, boom! A series of small explosions signaled the capitalism's complete shutdown. Flames began to spread to nearby storefronts. What a commotion! Urnet muttered, narrowing her eyes. They had arrived near a bustling commercial district. Beyond the forest of towering buildings, a colossal barrier loomed, their mission's final objective. In any case, the upload is complete. Yernet drew Bifrost. The jet-black blade was etched with intricate alien runes and formulas. Here, take it. You've done well. Saris accepted the sword and strapped it to her side. Now it was time to break through. Unidentified contamination entity, level unknown, times 2135. Mutated giant contamination entity, level 211. Mutated special contamination entity, screech! A wall of enemies surrounded them on all sides. In every alley, behind every window, monsters surged like crashing waves, their eyes glowing menacingly as they closed in. There are more than we expected. Well, we did cause quite a scene, probably drew out everything in the area. Katio stepped forward, quickly surveying their surroundings before turning to the heroes of Niflheim. Can you handle this on your own? From this point on, Saris cut in, stepping in front of Ridigen. Ridigen glanced at her, then stepped back without a word. Saris muttered to herself. Aaron's account, Taunia, the staging ground where the master had lived as a hero. I thought it was just a temporary connection, an utilitarian relationship forged for survival. When running Niflheim, Master Loki always made decisions with cold logic. I assumed it was the same in Taunia, that between the master and these people there was no camaraderie, no friendship. But these people, they didn't have to fight. They could have returned home. It seems I was mistaken. Saris finally spoke. The members of the 13th floor standing behind her turned their attention to her voice. I didn't understand why the master chose to remain here. A life of endless suffering, a peaceful life on Earth would have been so much better. Saris closed her eyes. The master was human too. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, misjudgments. Sometimes he followed emotion over reason. Loki the master and Han Israt the hero were not the same person, but perhaps that was why they'd fought so desperately to get here. We were wrong about him. She looked directly at Jenna. You're Jenna Shirai, right? Yep, loyal subordinate number 1 from Taunia, at your service. Jenna gave a sharp salute. Sarah smiled. What kind of person was the master? Well, Jenna scratched her cheek awkwardly. After a moment's hesitation, she spoke. Blunt, rude, always said whatever he wanted. So,
he was the worst. We knew each other for so long, but he just vanished without saying goodbye. He always did whatever he pleased. Seriously, it really hurt. She pouted, lips jutting out. But then her expression softened. Still, he wasn't a bad person. He was a jerk, just not a villain, Katio replied shortly. I see. Saris nodded. Up ahead, contamination entities were swarming into the street. There were hundreds. No, more. Jenna, Katio. I ask for your help. Please fight with us. Saris bowed deeply at the waist. Jenna waved her hands frantically. Sis, you don't have to go that far. No, it's us who should be grateful. It seems you all had a deeper bond with the master than we ever did. Thank you for fighting beside him in our place. If not for you, he might not have survived this far. The members behind her said nothing. Ridigian leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, while Nihaku stood blankly, lost in thought. Yernet lowered her head slightly, deep in contemplation. A touching scene, truly. A sharp whistle rang out. Everyone turned. From behind the flaming wreckage of the airship, a man with a sharp, fox-like face emerged, smirking. Didn't think I'd live to see the day. The famed submaster of Niflheim bowing to someone else. His tone was relaxed, amused. With every step, the sheath at his waist clinked and swayed. Who the hell is this clown talking to our sweet Sirenly like the— Stop. But, please. At Saris's firm request, Nihaku backed off with a pout. Velkistopa, you were late. You should have just come with me from the start. No thanks. Once was enough. I've no desire to endure that kind of lunatic piloting again. He glanced around. Hundreds, thousands of contamination entities were closing in from all directions. A dark grin curled his lips. What a warm welcome. Looks like we've got a proper mess on our hands. You're Velkester, at your service. You folks used to call that man Master, didn't you? We shared some time in Townia. I see a few familiar faces. He gave Aaron a sly wink. Then, with a more serious expression, Velkester added, Don't bother asking how I got here. The dimensional gate linked to Townia was still open inside the ship. I just passed through after you all left. Quite a surprise, really. All the high and mighty types I knew used to have backs so stiff they couldn't bend an inch. You seem different. No steel rod in the spine, I presume? He chuckled. Ceres took a deep breath and opened her mouth. I ask you as well. No need. Clang! In a flash, Velkester drew his sword and leapt into the air. A spider-like contamination entity descending from a rooftop was sliced in half, spraying black blood. Bathed in gore, Velkester muttered, Make sure there's nothing left to regret. I don't want this ending with some half-hearted whimper. Either we clean this up, or we all die. I hate loose ends. His eyes snapped wide open, a vivid killing intent radiating from them, sharp as blades. Let's begin! A white horn burst from Velkester's forehead. Engraving, white dragon's blood activated. Kring! His sword shook violently, brilliant white waves rippling from the hilt, humming with power. Boom! Velkester vaulted from the cracked asphalt. Twisting midair, he brought his blade down in a sweeping arc. A formless shockwave cleaved through the horde in front of them. The contamination entities blocking the road were reduced to shreds in an instant. Without pause, Velkester hurled himself straight into the densest cluster of monsters. Blood and limbs exploded outward in a storm of carnage. Guess it's our turn! Behind him, Jenna drew her bow. 3 arrows were already nocked and ready. Thwip! One bolt pierced the contamination entity clean through the forehead. Jenna looked back at Ceres and grinned. We'll clear the way. You and the others should conserve your strength for when it really counts. We're just doing what needs to be done, right? Damn right, someone shouted from behind. Ceres turned around once more. A girl in light leather armor cracked her fists together. The Gale tribe never forgets a debt. Kishisha Vikshabi, one of Townia's based-kin heroes. Her tiger ears atop her head twitched excitedly. For Han Israt, our noble warrior! Ha! Dozens of girls behind Kishisha roared in unison. They were fellow catfolk warriors. Crack! Kishisha twisted her wrist, the royal blood of the Beast King roaring through her veins. Now is the time of warriors! On all fours, the Beastkin heroes charged. A contamination entity poking its head around the corner was instantly obliterated by Kishisha's tackle. Near the smoldering remains of the capitalism, a rounded dimensional gate opened. One after another, heroes poured out, weapons drawn. Niflheim reinforcements weren't coming. Their fleet was still undergoing repairs. But Townia! Individually, the heroes might have been weaker than Niflheim's elite. They likely wouldn't decide the battle. Even so, they were here, willing to die for the master. That, above all, was irrefutable. Their sincerity couldn't be dismissed or belittled. Ceres, Aaron spoke, meeting her gaze. Let's go. Ceres and eyes steadied, locking on the towering barrier beyond the cityscape. Beyond it, the master was waiting. Master, I'm coming to find you. Ceres gripped Levitane tightly. Chapter 322. Clang! 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 Beneath the towering barrier that split the city in two, the clash of weapons rang out in a chaotic chorus. Hold this line! Stop them here! A knight, teeth gritted, led the charge with his sword raised high. Behind him, Townia's heroes surged forward, weapons drawn. Screech! Contamination entities burst from the buildings, shrieking like beasts. The man at the front was decapitated mid-sprint. A geyser of blood erupted into the air, but none of the surrounding heroes flinched. They fought on, clashing endlessly with foes so monstrous and warped it was impossible to tell if they had once been human. Screams, battle cries, and magical flames bloomed across every street corner. "I didn't expect this," Ridigian murmured under his breath. He hadn't thought they would commit to the battle this deeply, but they were fighting with everything they had. "Suri." Ridigian turned. A woman in a violet cloud-patterned martial robe stepped out from the crowd. Behind her stood warriors clad in the same uniform, lined up in formation. Manwiriung, a 5-star hero from Murion, and Ridigian's fellow discipline from long ago. Her eyes met his as she cupped her fists in a formal greeting. "Before I return, I came to repay a debt I owe to young Lord Han. It was thanks to him I survived and was able to gather the remaining Murion survivors." Wiriung and her warriors unsheathed their swords. "May endless glory shine upon Tao Chan Hang." Whoosh! A dozen or so Murion warriors leapt into the air, their sword dance blossoming dazzlingly in the midst of the contamination horde. "My brother's fight wasn't in vain. This battle no longer belongs to just us," Cirrus said with a bitter smile. "If the operation failed, it would no longer be her burden alone to bear. They would all have been betrayed. Thanks to them, we've been able to conserve our strength." In the middle of the intersection, Urnit was deep in magic casting. Had Taunia's heroes not held off the contamination entities, the mission would have become far more difficult. At the intersection where Cirrus's team had gathered, hundreds of heroes threw themselves into the fight, buying them time. Woo! A brilliant glow erupted from the magic circle beneath Urnit. In the midst of that, Cirrus heard her voice in her ear. "Once I finish the spell, run immediately. A gate will appear at the end of the path. A passage to the boundary? Coordinate calibration is complete. If Aaron's karma attribute activates properly, it should lead to the master's location." Cirrus nodded. Her comrades were already prepared. "Urnit, one request." "Speak." "When we're gone, stay behind and protect them. Those who stood with us deserve to return home alive." "You're not wrong. I will do as you ask." "Thank you." Urnit's eyes flashed. Flutter, flutter, flutter. Her grimoire opened wide, its pages tearing themselves free and scattering into the air. The pages gathered and wove themselves into a path, a floating road, hundreds of meters long, crafted from tens of millions of magical sheets. At the end of the road stood the barrier that separated this world from the boundary. "We'll carve the path. Nihaku." "Yes, ma'am. I'm going first." Crapple! With a burst of lightning, Naku leapt and landed on the airborne road. She immediately fired an arrow into the forehead of a contamination entity climbing up from below, and dashed forward. Right behind her, Ridigian followed with his silver blade drawn. Screech! 32 unidentified contamination entities, level unknown, surged forward next. Naku launched lightning arrows ahead while Ridigian finished off the stragglers. The moment the enemies stepped onto the path, they were obliterated. "I'll go too," Aaron said, grabbing his spear and charging forward. Left alone for a moment, Cirrus turned around. In a narrow alley, Jenna was locked in a desperate battle with a spider-like contamination entity, her dual daggers clashing with clawed limbs. Jenna Shirai. She'd claimed to be the master's #1 subordinate. Thwack! Jenna's eyes widened. A dagger suddenly pierced the spider's forehead, one she hadn't thrown. She turned towards its trajectory and saw a blonde female knight standing there. "Thanks, sis," Jenna waved at Cirrus. "Jenna, is there anything you'd like to ask of me before we part?" "A request? I'd like to repay you." "I was wondering what you were on about." "Nah, nothing really. Just take care of Oppo, okay? I guess, if I had to ask, maybe have him visit my house someday?" "I'll ask the master." And... Whoa! Jenna caught the object that came flying at her. a small metal badge etched in gold with the image of a mountain goat. If any of you ever wish to come to us, the path will always be open. Well, I'll hold on to it for now. Don't die. Of course not. I'm going home. Cirrus turned her back. Before her, the path stretched onward. Sis! Jenna clenched her fist. Go get him! Cirrus smiled, then sprinted forward. Shing! The red blade of Leviathane sprang from its scabbard. As she ran, she slashed wide. Fire exploded out, incinerating 3 contamination entities at once. So many. Thanks to Anything's piloting, the route had been opened. Taunia's heroes were holding the rear. The 13th floor comrades were clearing the path, but even so, the number of enemies was beyond counting. She had to move with utmost efficiency. Until she reached the master, she couldn't afford to burn her strength. Screech! Aaron! Redigen's voice rang out from ahead, a signal. Aaron spun his spear. Whoomp! 3 contamination entities were struck and hurled off the path. 4 shadows of a fallen god, level unknown, emerged. Shh! Suddenly shadows formed on the road. They were remnants of the divine essence Loki had once absorbed, now fused with contamination and far more dangerous. The lead shadow let out a silent scream. The jet-black blade in its hand vibrated erratically. The blade twisted, too fast to follow with the eye. At that moment, a phantom image flickered from Aaron's spear. A spear shadow shot forward between the curving blades. Scream! The contamination entity shattered like a beehive and vanished. We'll be here soon. Yes! Aaron scanned ahead. Screech! 11,327 unidentified contamination entities, level unknown, swarmed before the massive barrier. Like moths to a flame, tens of thousands of contamination entities were drawn towards the light. Just once. He only needed to land the spear once. Aaron pulled his spear back. Engraving, Shadow Stream, activated.
A noise like millions of bees roaring at once filled the air. A burst of after-images exploded from the tip of his spear. Karma. The principle was simple. Overlay countless thrusts onto a single point. Manifest thousands of strikes in a single instant. If it had a category, it'd be space manipulation type. You'd have to be insane to use something like this, echoed his master's voice in Aaron's memory. Takes centuries to get it right. Who the hell would even bother? A single drop of water does nothing to a stone, but billions, trillions can carve through mountains. The light vanished from Aaron's eyes. The spear's after-images multiplied exponentially, flooding every direction. Dozens became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. This isn't a technique. Aaron had never been able to grasp the true secrets of spear mastery. No amount of studying, no amount of bleeding could bring him enlightenment. This was just him, converting his time into space and firing it forward. Moreover, once the spearhead was thrust in, it could never be retrieved. Centuries of effort would vanish into oblivion. That's why. Aaron ran forward with his spear in hand. Contaminants appeared on the aerial road in front of the barrier. Get lost! And were all shredded to pieces by a few swings of Redigion's blade. Crackle! 8 forked bolts of lightning swept the area as Nihaku fired her thunder arrows. Aaron sprinted up a 45-degree ramp. With every step he took, thousands of nearby shadows trembled in unison. Year 1543, 563,195 days Aaron had shed blood and sweat for. Yeah! 14,510 unidentified contaminants, level unknown. 531 mutant giant contaminants, level unknown. 426 special experiment specimens, level unknown. 379 contaminated ancient phantasmic beasts, level unknown. The contaminants descended. Aaron's vision was swallowed in darkness. Even if I can't see, I still know where to stab. A grin crept across his lips. Boom! A blast erupted. Smoke billowed from not far away. As she ran, Cirrus received a message from Urnit. So you did it. It's your turn now. Cirrus accelerated even more. The wide road was littered with the corpses of contaminants. Sure. Cirrus furrowed her brow. Warning. Contaminated Jormungandr. Level 322. A serpent hundreds of meters long was closing the distance, the same ancient lifeform they'd passed when piloting the capitalism. It had followed them all the way here. What a nuisance! Redigion landed behind her. Clang! The serpent's fangs clashed with his tachi. Then, Sirrrr! Letting the fangs slip past effortlessly, the tachi ripped clean through the scales. Bathed in the snake's blue blood, Redigion spun his blade. Don't worry about me. Go. All right. I believe in you. Redigion held out his tachi. Cirrus gently bumped her sword against his, then turned toward the barrier. Siri! Nahaku flipped through the air and drew her bowstring. Crackle! Golden lightning shot straight forward, burning through the contaminants blocking the path. Take care of my master for me. Cirrus dashed past Nahaku. Aaron was standing nearby with his spear lowered. Near the breach in the barrier, a 3-meter-wide hole, mountains of monster corpses had piled up. This is as far as I go. You've done well. Please, save my brother. Clack. Aaron slung his spear over his back. Now it's my turn. The heroes of Niflheim and Townia had risked their lives, all to send her into the boundary. Cirrus drew a deep breath. Loki. Her rosy lips whispered her master's name. Blue veins surfaced on the back of the hand gripping her sword. Right ahead, Aaron's breach. Beyond it, a lost undead awaited her. Nacelle! Nacelle appeared beside her. The fairy fluttered her twin wings and landed on Cirrus's shoulder. Her emerald-colored eyes turned crimson. Whoosh! Cirrus's golden hair blazed red as if set on fire. Flames surged from beneath her feet, wrapping around her entire body and flaring violently. Cirrus adjusted her grip on Leviathan, which now pulsed with crimson flame. Out of my way. She cleaved down the last contaminant before the barrier, then stepped into the breach. Darkness consumed everything around her. Nothing could be seen. It was like leaping off a sheer cliff. Cirrus was falling endlessly. Danger. Hero Cirrus, 6-star, has begun to be contaminated. At some point, a sticky darkness wrapped around her, but only briefly. The flame rising from her back scorched the darkness away. The flame of Pama, demon breaking. As long as Cirrus burned herself, she could never be contaminated. Her body sank as if plunged into the deep sea, yet the flames brightening her surroundings only grew more intense. Her vision remained shrouded in static-laced noise. Static-laced noise screamed in her ears. Cirrus's senses kept sending abnormal signals. Space-time is twisted. Zikikt. The cradle of chaos where past, future, and present were tangled together. Aaron's power was still holding it together, for now, but it wouldn't last. If she missed her moment, Cirrus would be trapped here forever. In that chaos, Cirrus saw a vision. Fireworks blooming in the night sky, a vast city and its people lost in the heat of a festival. On the outskirts of that city, a group of people walked. Victory. They murmured, wearing goat masks, "To the nameless God." Their prayers rang out in hushed voices. Victory. She couldn't tell where this was, past or future. She couldn't even tell who they were. All wore bizarre masks. To the nameless God. Victory. Cirrus shifted to the corner. A woman in a ragged robe knelt. Silver hair shimmered in the moonlight. Golden eyes gleamed behind her mask. Cirrus locked eyes with the woman. To the nameless God, she whispered fervently. Salvation. Salvation. Don't worry, Cirrus spoke to her. She didn't know if her voice would reach. Ah. It felt like the woman was looking her way. Cirrus quietly smiled. And then, thud. Her feet touched solid ground. Cirrus. Nacelle whispered in her ear. No words needed. She didn't have to turn around to feel it, that overwhelming presence. Just standing there, she felt like her whole body was melting under the pressure. Master, Cirrus whispered. Not far away.
Chapter 323. This was the boundary, the demarcation between Mobius and the outer universe. Cirrus stared straight ahead. A pitch-black horizon stretched before her. With a single breath, a chill that felt as if it would freeze her blood swept through her veins. Whoosh! A flame ignited at her fingertips, casting a flickering glow around her. There, amid a deeper cluster of darkness, stood a man. His cloak fluttered, revealing his hidden face. Only then did Cirrus recognize him. There was no doubt. The master of Niflheim she had been searching for, Loki. He had been dwelling alone in this hellish place. Eden, which had once bordered the boundary, had long since succumbed to centuries of time. How many years had passed in this place? Cirrus couldn't even begin to guess. He's hollow. Eyes devoid of focus turned to her. No trace of emotion on his face. It was too inorganic to be called cold. It was as if the emotions of a human being had been completely erased, and she was looking at a mannequin eerily modeled after a man. Master. Cirrus bit her lip. This man was no longer the Loki she knew. She'd already realized it, but the pain struck as if it were new, piercing her chest. Her flames flared brighter. Beyond the distant horizon, a mountain of blackened debris appeared, the corpses of fragments. Yet what she faced was only a tiny part, this whole space. Cirrus tapped the ground beneath her foot. The very land she stood on was made from the remains of the dead, a literal sea of blood and bones. There was no telling how many reapers the master had defeated here, how much power he had accumulated, or how many forgotten years he had spent. Master, Cirrus took a step toward Loki. Stop! A fairy blocked her path. Nacelle frantically waved her hands, her face stricken with panic. That monster isn't Master. If you get too close, he'll kill you. Monster. You're not told us, remember? The Master right now is basically a program. Even if you're standing right in front of him, he won't know it's you. It doesn't matter who it is. You're right, Cirrus murmured. That man could no longer be called human. No memory, no emotion, not even a self. A program, endlessly repeating the role it was given. The dead one would keep executing his task until he wore himself away. And now, his sole directive was to kill intruders. Shrink, shrink. The dead one's eyes fixed on Cirrus. Suddenly, she felt the bottomless sense of loss tear through her. This is the Master's power. Shh. She looked down at her hands. Her fingertips were turning to particles, slowly disintegrating. The dead one had surpassed the level of a hero, transcended even the divine, and had reached a realm beyond. Simply by looking, he could erase someone from existence. There was no need to cross swords. To him, Cirrus was less than an insect, something that could be crushed effortlessly. So that's how it is. Cirrus let out a bitter smile. Even she, once hailed as the greatest among all Mobius heroes, was nothing but a bug in his eyes. Nacelle. Yeah. Watch my back. Nacelle didn't respond. Pretending not to hear, Cirrus grabbed both of Nacelle's wings and tugged. I told you already, this is the only way. I've brought everything I need. The Bifrost, the medium to transfer the data, and Mistle to drive into the Master's heart. Now it was time to carry out her role. Cirrus extended her hand to her partner. The fairy nodded and began to spin in the air. Flames scattered with every beat of her wings. radiating a brilliant crimson hue. In that pattern of rotation, Nicelle suddenly dove into Sirius's chest. Whoosh! A wave of fire surged from Sirius's body. The suffocating gaze that had been crushing her vanished in an instant. Ifrit form. Spirit fusion. Flames burst from Sirius's red-crimson hair. Shriek, shrink. The dead one tilted his head, a strange gesture. That lowly being should have been erased already. And yet, she stood there unfazed, meeting his gaze. Master, this won't be easy. Sirius gripped Levitane tightly. If you want to kill me, you'll have to come down and swing your blade yourself. Sure. From the man's fingertips, dragon scales unfurled. They elongated and coiled, forming the shape of a sword. She had seen it before on surveillance. The dragon scale blade, the weapon Loki adopted after abandoning Bifrost. Finally, the dead one acknowledged her as an enemy. Sirius grinned. It was what she had wanted. It was you. You're the one who made the fake me stronger. A fire lit in Sirius's eyes. In that instant, the man vanished. Even after countless battles and drills, honed instincts and sharpened vision, Sirius couldn't track his movement. So fast. Boom! Ugh! An explosion rang out. Sirius flew through the air, spinning dozens of meters before slamming into a mountain of debris. Cough! A mass of blood spurted from her mouth. Had she not trained in Rigidian's rapid blade arts, she would have been sliced clean in that very moment. Stronger than Rigidian. No, comparison wasn't even possible. This wasn't just speed. Sirius staggered to her feet. Blood streamed down her torn forehead. He's strong. With Ifrit form active, her physical abilities had far surpassed the limits of a 6-star hero, and yet she couldn't even see his shadow. Not yet. Second strike. Levitane curved to the right. There, aimed straight at her heart, was the dragon scale blade. Clash! The blades collided with a shockwave. Ugh! Sirius's vision turned red. Crack! A sickening pop echoed in her ears. Her mangled hand burst with blood. Screech! Her overstrained muscles tore apart with a wet rip. Third strike. 3 slashes came simultaneously, above, right, below. Sirius drew a half-moon arc, intercepting the dragon scale blade at each point. Sirius! Boom! The ground beneath her split deep. Beside her burning hair, her blood splattered like mist. Not yet. Fourth strike. The dragon scale blade stretched dozens of meters, coiling around her entire body. Sirius swung her Levitane in a wide arc. Foosh! Scarlet flames spiraled, knocking the scales aside. Power demands a price, Sirius whispered internally, just as Loki had cast away his humanity to obtain the cup of infinity. To gain something, you had to lose something. What you desired. An eternal, unbroken string of victories. Strength that would never kneel even before infinity itself. So that's why. I won't fail. Sirius gripped her sword again. Fifth strike. When she deflected the dragon scale blade, she instantly knew every bone in her body had shattered. Her posture could burst like a balloon at any moment. She couldn't feel pain anymore. Her muscles and bones had completely failed. Still, she didn't stop moving. Sixth strike. Boom! I can't move. Her body no longer responded to her brain's commands. No. Foo-foom! Torn nerves were rewired with fire. Cracked bones, ruptured vessels. Between every gap, fires surged and held her together. A brilliant pillar of flame rose, catching her collapsing body again and again. Seventh strike. The dead one's assault intensified. From above, below, right, left. As if to say, still not dead, the dragon scale blade hunted her from all directions. Shrink, shrink.
For the first time, the dead one's eyes flickered with curiosity. Understandable, Cirrus smiled. This wretched insect still refused to die. Her whole body was covered in wounds. Hands, arms, legs, thighs, sides, every exposed part was carved with cuts. Drip. A stream of blood traced down her forehead and splattered to the ground. This much. Cirrus swayed, but stared straight at him. Her face drenched in blood, her red eyes gleamed. "It's not enough. To kill me." Thud. Dragon-scale blade and Leviathan collided again. Cirrus staggered back several meters, but kept her balance. "The more my body breaks," fuse. Flames burst from her entire being. Clang. Leviathan deflected the dragon-scale blade with a violent surge. The dead one righted his stance and leapt backward. "The hotter I burn!" Her nerves were already severed. Now fire flowed through her veins instead of blood. Eighth strike. Their blades collided in mid-air. The trembling air, the shock wave dug deep into the debris mountain. She could no longer feel how she was even fighting. Cirrus moved by instinct, swinging her blade. The primordial flame, Niflheim's ancient myth. It was said to have once lit the land of fog and cold, brighter than any star in the universe. Hotter. Fume. Fewsh. From deep within her body, flames erupted. Her heart pulsed like a forge's bellows, pumping fire through every vein. Power always demanded a price. Victory always came at the cost of sacrifice. More, more, more. The fire fused her shattered bones back together. Her nerves reconnected, her muscles pulsed violently. Like a lantern flickering before the end, memories surged through her mind like a zoetrope. From the first time she arrived at the staging room to this very moment before clashing with her master, the sights, the pain, the countless battles, all that suffering, all that effort, all those years, if they had existed for this one moment, if it had all led to now, "I won't lose," Cirrus whispered. "Not to you. Never. You can't defeat me." Fume. A blaze more dazzling than ever before. Cirrus's hair turned white as the fire of life ignited. "You sacrificed yourself for eternity." The ninth strike. Light and dark collided. Flame and shadow twisted together, churning heat in every direction. "But I give myself for this moment. This is my persuasion for you." Burning. Hotter. Even hotter. The 10th strike. She broke the limits, then broke them again. The entire boundary buried in darkness was set ablaze. A few dormant fragments twitzed toward the light, only to dissolve into bubbles the instant they drew near. Cirrus's eyes blazed like twin suns. To burn you needed fuel, and the fuel she chose was herself. The 11th strike. Light and dark clashed fiercely. Leviathan and the dragon-scale blade lunged for each other's vitals, thrusting, slashing, deflecting, striking again. Each clash exploded in fire. The 12th, the 13th, the 14th, 15th, 16th. Before the fire consumed her fully, before she let go of life. "I'll end it." Her burning sword drove the dead one back without pause. Sonic speed, supersonic, light speed, beyond light. Attacks that surpassed the limits of existence itself poured toward the dead one. And still he blocked them. Of course he did. He retaliated calmly as if it were nothing. What an incredible man. A faint smile touched Cirrus's lips. He parried her all-out strike without blinking. Ranked third, wasn't he? Even the 7-star hero hadn't lasted a single second. In slowed space-time, between flickers of instants, hundreds of exchanges crisscrossed, collided, and overlapped. Brilliant fire rose around them. The primordial flame engulfed Cirrus. Faster. Now she could see it. She could feel the world her master had fought in all this time. Leviathan curved, leaving a red arc in its wake. Shook. The wet sound of torn flesh. Black blood burst from the dead one's left shoulder. He didn't stop. The dragon scale blade twisted in a spiral and sliced across Cirrus's side. But she felt no pain. The unnecessary parts of her body had already burned away. She had become a machine refined for a single moment. Stronger. Boom. The raw force pushed the dead one back. Cirrus lunged at his reeling form. More, just a little more, more. Every time she burned, every time the thread of life shortened, the fire grew more intense. The dead one's eyes darkened. He now classified the being before him as a worthy foe. Scales scattered, his cloak billowed as he soared upward. Cirrus chased after him, igniting another blaze. Red and black crashed again. Screech! Crawling fragments were no longer an issue. The aftershocks alone erased the ones attempting to approach. How far, master? Clang. Flames erupted between Livaton and the dragon scale blade. How far must I climb to stand beside you? Cirrus burned from the soles of her feet upward. Behind her, gray ash fluttered like snow. She could no longer be called human, a living flame. When this fire extinguished, only ashes would remain. Even so, he was strong, overwhelmingly, dazzlingly. The more fiercely Cirrus pressed him, the more fiercely he returned it, twice over. Not once in the countless clashes did he falter, as if declaring with his entire being, "It doesn't matter who challenges me, I will never lose." His cloak rippled, the dragon scale blade rose high, and then strike 328. The blade extended dozens of meters, surrounding Cirrus entirely. A sickening rip. Crunch. Cirrus's right arm was torn off. The arm that held Livaton soared, spewing blood. Shook. A razor scale gouged out her left eye. Darkness swallowed half her vision. "Master," Cirrus smiled. In the blurring landscape, the dead one slowly walked toward her. "This is just cruel. There should be a limit to how strong someone could be. Even when she drew out thousands of times her normal output, she still couldn't surpass him. In the end, she had never reached the place he stood. And because of that, Cirrus was certain, if it's this man, he could win. No matter the opponent, even against an absolute being who surpassed the gods, he could emerge victorious. Cirrus looked forward. The dragon scale blade thrust toward her heart. She couldn't block it, she knew that instinctively. Even if she drew on the power of origin and burned herself away, she couldn't overpower this man. But just this once, thud. The dragon scale pierced through her chest. Her left hand released what it had been clutching. I won. Her body collapsed to the side.
Chapter 324. I opened my eyes. For what felt like an eternity, I had been dreaming. In that dream, I fought against endless enemies. Again and again, I battled. No matter how many I killed, no matter how many times I collapsed in exhaustion, the dream never ended. It was a nightmare that seemed destined to last forever. And just when even the scenery of that dream began to fade from memory, I saw a distant flame. A sharp pain. Clang! I wrenched the dagger from my chest. The hole, leaking black blood, sealed up in an instant. Shattered memories began to return. Han Sa-jin. My name from Earth. Here I was Hanisrat, Prince of Taunia. Loki. I lifted my head. Someone lay collapsed and dying nearby. Tangled golden hair, a once neat uniform, now soaked in blood. Ceres. Fragments of memory began to reassemble. That woman was Ceres Argentine, the one I trusted most in Niflheim, the leader of Server 1, my submaster. According to my memory, I had left her behind in the waiting room. There was a severe gap in my recollection. A lot must have happened while I was lost to myself. I needed to assess the situation. Where was I? Why had I awakened here? What had I been doing just before this? Why was this woman dying at my feet? 1, 2, 3. I see. I narrowed my eyes. So, she followed me after all. No matter how many times I tried to drive her away, she came anyway. Given the existence of the barrier, there was no way Saris could have made it here alone. There was a high chance that other Niflheim heroes, or even some from Taunia, were involved. Whoosh! I whipped my cloak. The magic drifting through the boundary revealed a vision of the past. What had happened here played out before my eyes, vivid as a panorama. It matched my expectations perfectly. They had forced their way in. What the hell are you doing? I looked down at Saris. She didn't seem capable of responding. I let out a hollow laugh. It was this woman's doing that had temporarily restored my sanity. Loki. A fairy? Yeah, we're meeting for the first time. I'm Nicelle. Above Saris, a red-haired fairy fluttered her wings. Niflheim's designated fairy, no doubt. The reason we came here is... You want to fight alongside me, is that it? No need for a lengthy explanation. Outside, the other members of Floor 13 were probably waiting. Saris, able to resist the corruption of the boundary, must have infiltrated alone, to persuade me. Voom. I waved my hand, and Bifrost, dangling from Saris's waist, rose into the air. I grabbed its sheath and read the data stored within. Only then did I understand the full picture. Why they had come, what they wanted from me. Idiots. I tried to give them a peaceful life, and this is what they do. Loki, I'm not particularly concerned. It was my decision, a responsibility I had to bear myself. I tried to drive them away, but if they had tried to persuade me with words, I would have rejected them outright. But to resort to this kind of forced coercion, I know how to save her. By connecting her to the chalice of infinity that I possess. Saris would permanently lose her fire affinity, but at least her life would be spared. So this is your persuasion. If I don't accept, Saris will die. This isn't persuasion, it's veiled coercion. If you don't want her to die, make the contract. I pressed my hand to my forehead. I thought she was cold and calculating, but she turned out to be a fool. I should have never made her submaster. Loki! I know this isn't coercion. Even if Saris dies, even if everyone outside is abandoned, we'll still gladly accept whatever decision you make. But I want you to understand one thing. You might think you left them behind out of consideration, but the truth is very different. Stardust sparkled from Nicelle's wings. Then, thump, a small fairy dropped to the ground as if collapsing. The moment I saw her, I knew. Frey. I bent one knee. A girl small enough to fit in my hands. Fast asleep, completely unaware of the world. This is the companion you left behind in Eden. Maybe you thought you were sparing her by keeping her out of the battlefield. But look at the state she's in. It was obvious at a glance. The contamination had progressed severely. She never left. I bit my lip. Suddenly, Frey's eyelids fluttered. Those large eyes focused on me. Loki. She blinked in disbelief. Then she shot up and clung to my arm. Loki, Loki, you were here. Don't go. I'm sorry. I'll do better, so please don't abandon me. I'm sorry, Loki. It was my fault, so please. She murmured it over and over, until finally Frey fell asleep again. A single tear rolled down her plump cheek as she slept. Nicelle, glancing between us, finally spoke. You may have thought this place was hell and left Frey behind. But to this child, a world without you was the true hell. I know this, because I was born and raised in the same place. I was a fairy who was always with you. Ceres, me, and the other heroes feel the same. That's why we risked everything to come find you." I gently laid Frey down on the ground. "So what, you're saying you want to rot away here with me?" "Yeah. You do realize who I'm fighting, don't you? The chaos of the universe itself. We're ready. How long do you think that resolve will last? 10 years? 100? 1,000? Do you think you'll even be useful in this war?" "I'm sure we will be, if you share your power. You always told us, more than individuals we need comrades, more than comrades we need sworn allies, that a unified strength is what really matters." Nicelle continued. "You know better than anyone how much potential Niflheim holds. If they're given the opportunity, they'll each carry their own weight. In this endless battle, they'll be your shield, your sword, and your spear. Stop bearing it all alone. You don't have to push yourself anymore. When you're tired, it's okay to lean on us." Nicelle winked at me. I let out a hollow laugh. All these polished, beautiful words. And yet, they were the ones who forced me back to Earth. Now they want to fight alongside me. Could they be more two-faced? Loki. I looked down at Frey. I admit it. This was my mistake. If I'd really meant to leave her behind, I should have been more thorough. I never imagined she would destroy herself like this. Unified strength. I clutched my chest. Inside was an endless power, an immense pure interference force gathered over an eternity. If I released that power all at once, even my body would be destroyed. Even as a being who had passed the limits of the divine, I could not withstand such output. You're saying I should share this power? Could they handle it?
This was power beyond 7 stars. Just like me, they might lose themselves. You're worrying over nothing. As if reading my mind, Nicelle smiled faintly. If I accept Niflheim, I might become weaker than before. I'd be shouldering a burden I didn't need, because I'd have something to protect. I looked up. The endless darkness stretched overhead. Beyond that lay an infinite host of enemies. What do you think? I felt a dull weight in my left hand, a half-crushed statue of a warhorse, worn to dust. I've been watched. I knew it from the beginning. That familiar gaze, always watching me from above. Bzzzt, bzzz. Anything's interface was full of static, awful resolution, buffering every few seconds, cutting off the screen. Even so, anything didn't disconnect. Does she know the truth behind this so-called game world? She probably doesn't know. Where this place is, why I thought, she can only guess. And she'll never know, for sure. We live in worlds that are far too different. Maybe to her, this feels like watching a movie without knowing the plot. You're not going to answer, huh? I let out a small laugh. Of course not. Opening the battle shop. You have selected Glow Stick of Encouragement, Single Use, 50 gems. Would you like to purchase? Yes. Select. No. Huh? I blinked. A flickering light was shining. Glow stick? Out of nowhere. Purchase complete. Slide the screen left and right. Show your hero the master's encouragement. Flash. A violet flare lit up the air. What the hell is this? Anything waved the glow stick up and down. Its faint light danced through the air, tracing slow arcs, one by one, carefully, as if writing letters into the void. H-A-N. In the darkness, the purple light etched glowing letters. Be happy. Then the letters blurred into a haze of illusion and vanished. F-I-G-H-T-I-N-G. After the glow stick disappeared, I stood there in silence. Behind me, Nicelle was watching. Be happy? I laughed in disbelief.
Be happy? I'm not even sure what that means anymore. Ever since I fell into this place, it's been nothing but battle and struggle, fighting to survive, not knowing whether I'd live or die. And now you're telling me to be happy? You're one to talk. Ch. I clicked my tongue. If you'd just played the game better, things might have gone more smoothly. Happy. That word sounded foreign to me. Even if I accepted Niselle's proposal, or didn't, would happiness really exist either way? Still, maybe having someone beside me would be more fun than fighting alone. Clink. Bifrost's sheath dropped to the floor. The spell engraved on the dark blade shimmered gold. My white fur cloak whipped violently in the wind. How many did they say were coming? About 15,000. So many damned suicidal bastards. It's fine. Once we get your power, even death won't be death anymore. If you're useless, I'll kick you out. Okay. Niselle wiped her eyes. I chuckled, then let Bifrost hang in my hand. Whirl. I spun the great sword once and stabbed it into the ground. The obsidian blade plunged deep into the grim floor of the boundary. Open, I murmured. Phew. At that moment, radiant golden magic burst from the embedded sword. The flare lit the dark boundary in an instant and burned away the contamination cloud. A blinding light spread endlessly outward, and within it, I spoke the next command. Dimensional rift. King! Golden lines laced together, drawing a portal in the air. And then, familiar silhouettes emerged from beyond the gate. Redigian, over here. The cold-eyed man dropped to one knee before me. Redigian. His body was drenched in blood, but as always, it was the enemy's. Master, we found you! Crack! With a flash of lightning, Nihaku leaped into view. Landing gracefully, she grinned as she looked at me. Master! A white-haired woman stepped out from the mist. Yearnit seed. Her eyes met mine, and she bowed her head. And last of all, Aaron? Yes, the man holding a spear scratched his head. You didn't go home? Until my brother's battle ends, I'll stay. Stupid bastard. That's my strong suit, isn't it? Aaron smiled sheepishly. The spear he held was Ruin, one of the 5 divine artifacts. I could sense Muden had retired. Master, I'm so glad you're safe. Yearnit's stoic expression finally broke. She stepped toward me, tears welling in her eyes. I came to ask your forgiveness. You don't need to. You helped me plenty. Clink. I kicked away the dagger at my feet. This must have been Yearnit's doing, too. Sereni! Nihaku sprinted over in panic. Cirrus was still lying collapsed, dying. This had to be handled first. Master, Sereni! Stop crying. Just watch. I knelt beside Cirrus, brushing past Nihaku. Blood still flowed from the gaping hole in her chest. I clenched my right hand. Dense interference power gathered in my palm. Contract. I would link her heart to mine. You could call it a blessing, though it was more like a curse. Still, even so, I couldn't just abandon a hero I had raised. I placed my hand on Cirrus's chest. She was barely hanging on. Without her fire affinity, she would have died already. There. I grasped tightly. Thump. Her torn heart was reconnected by light.
Chapter 325. Cirrus's pale complexion began to regain a gentle peach hue. The infinite power coursed through her, knitting shattered bones and torn muscles, fusing nerves and sealing ruptured blood vessels. Her heartbeat grew steadily stronger, and then, gah! Dead blood burst from Cirrus's mouth. Cough! 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 Cirrus, don't die! Nihaku clung to her desperately. I pulled my hand from Cirrus's chest and muttered, "Quit bawling, she's not dead." I placed a hand atop Nihaku's head.
Then Cirrus's eyelids fluttered, and light returned to her green eyes. "Cirrus!" Nehaku threw her arms around her. I stood up. No need to ruin the mood. She'd been through hell. Whether out of carelessness or resolve, she'd not only stood against me directly, but even driven a blade into my heart. It must have taken a massive toll, and in the end, she died once for it. Master." Cirrus, still collapsed, turned toward me. Her feeble voice brushed my ears. "Don't call me that. The game was over. Once anything, the last master of Pick-Me-Up disconnects, the server will never open again. The crossroads between Mobius and Earth will vanish forever." Cirrus winced as she tried to sit up. She hadn't fully recovered. Even if she'd been linked to the Chalice of Infinity, she still needed time to adapt to the new power. "Cirrus, don't push yourself. What if you collapse again?" Cirrus gave Nehaku a bitter smile, then looked straight at me again. "Rest. I'll take care of the rest." "I wanted to ask your forgiveness." "For what? Oh, for trying to send me back to Earth? I forgot about that ages ago." I scratched the back of my head. Honestly, I owed Niflheim a lot. When I played the game, I never once considered the hero's circumstances. Cirrus, Urnit, Ridijin, Muden, Nehaku, each of them had come close to death or lost someone dear to them because of me. I worked them hard. It's a miracle none of them stabbed me. I never expected them to go this far. "You're missing your right arm and left eye. Hold on, I'll regenerate them." "It's fine." Cirrus shook her head. "I'll carry this as the price for my mistake." "You're saying you'll live with one arm and one eye?" "It won't affect my combat ability. I'll learn a new method." Her eyes were unwavering, the look of someone with true resolution. I was about to argue, but held my tongue. Better to leave her be for now. There would be another chance to persuade her. Now loading. Niflheim is being regenerated. I looked back. Rumble! A massive pillar rose beside the spot where Bifrost was embedded, like an enormous tree trunk. I didn't need to be told what it was. It was the core structure of Niflheim, the waiting room I had painstakingly designed. Yggdrasil. Urnit spoke from beside me. "From that tree, the new Niflheim will be born." A faint tremor rippled through the ground. Countless branches stretched out from the pillar. Like blossoms and leaves, light spread from each branch and began to fill the space. The floor, once nothing to darkness and void, was now finished with clean tiles. The fountain, a symbol of the plaza, sprayed clear water, and benches assembled around it. This scene, I've seen it before. When I first fell here, when the waiting room was first constructed. The light cast from the branches swept freely through the vast space, rebuilding the Niflheim I remembered, pouring color and light into this once empty boundary. "O king." "Who's a king?" "You forbade us from calling you master." "I'm not a king either. Don't call me that nonsense." Urnit looked at me awkwardly. She was asking me to define a name. Not master, not king. Then what am I? Han Seijin. I had already thrown away that life on Earth. Han Isrod, too. I'd have to visit Taunia once to see Priya and the others, but I couldn't stay there. That name was over as well. Loki. A name from some myth where a god brings about the end of the world. It was also my account name. Loki-nim. Urnit murmured, then grumbled under her breath. I rather liked the title of king, though. Huh? In our world, kings only existed in legends. They were said to lead all people to victory and usher in an age of prosperity. As if Earth were any different. There, kings were relics of the past. Just something we skimmed over in history books. Nothing that suited me now. Ah, I see. As I explained that, Yrnit nodded, then smiled. Then my role must be to guide Loki-nim, who does not yet suit that title, to one day become a true king. What? It's fine. We don't really know what it means to be vassals or what loyalty truly is. We'll learn together. I believe we'll forge a satisfying bond in time. Yrnit's radiant smile left me dumbfounded. I was speechless. We have finally become one. You can't run away anymore. Uhuhu. So, this much was on me. I was the one who accepted them. Trrrr! A resounding trumpet call. I looked up. All Niflheim forces, advance! Beyond the dimensional rift, countless airships were gathering. It seemed Niflheim's main force had finally arrived. Light the fires of fall! The vast sky of the boundary darkened. Centered around the flagship Brynhildr 01, hundreds of airships large and small formed a grand fleet. At their front flew the statue of the mountain goat, Niflheim's emblem. To bring eternal victory to Loki-nim! If they keep shouting like that, won't they die? That's true, but I let out a sigh. The battles here are nothing like the ones out there. To make them useful, I'd have to start from scratch. Mwahahaha! At the prow of Brynhildr 01, a fairy wearing a pirate hat and eye patch burst into maniacal laughter. Now that I'm full-time, no one can stop me. Fragments, do you see this? My ultra-hyper-super-golden fleet. Tremble in fear. Come at me if you dare. Mwahahaha! Demote her back to intern. Yes, sir. I whipped my cloak. The new Niflheim beneath my feet was being rebuilt piece by piece. My domain, Niflheim. It would be my fortress and my throne. This could be fun. Felt like starting a new game. I was becoming a master once more. The difference now was my fate was tied to Niflheim. Remember this, I muttered. My voice, infused with power, spread across the entire boundary. Now that we've made a contract, even if you die, you will not die. Even in death, you'll rise again and fight. We are one, and at the same time, we are all. The chalice of infinity no longer belongs to me alone. In return, I'll give you the strength to fight. In this endless war, to seize victory. To the king, victory. Ridogene spoke solemnly. Victory, victory, victory. To our king, victory. To the king of the boundary, victory. A resounding chorus echoed far and wide. We'll need new reinforcements. I'll set up contact nodes across all Mobius dimensions. If there are those who seek war and glory, they'll be able to join us. To them we shall be known as Valhalla. Valhalla has a nice ring to it.
There are some strong candidates in Townia. Would you like to hear them? That. Can wait till later. I smirked. Aaron. Yes? Do you regret coming here? Aaron ran a hand over his spear. I regretted it more times than I can count. Yeah? For thousands of years. So much that I got sick of it. Until there was nothing left. I really was a bastard. If Aaron had stayed as a training instructor, none of this would have happened. He could have lived a quiet life doing what he was meant to. He should have been smiling beside his little sister. This was my karma. I was the one who made him like this, the one who dragged him into an eternal war. Youngyum. I have no more regrets. Aaron looked at me with unwavering eyes. To keep fighting by your side from now on, that's an honor. Honor my ass. Still, he'd followed me well. Even during those agonizing times with no progress, he never once blamed me. He always chalked everything up to his own inadequacy. I looked over at Ridogene. He said nothing, simply displayed his Tachi scabbard from afar. So, it doesn't even need to be said. Nehaku was crying in the corner, sobbing like mad. "I'm just so glad, Master! Master!" I shrugged my shoulders. And then, Saris. She looked mostly recovered now. Saris staggered toward me. Her left eye was wrapped in cloth, and her empty right sleeve fluttered in the breeze. My submaster. The hero I cherished most. At first, it was just because she was my only 4-star, but soon enough I realized it. This one was different from ordinary heroes. She made mistakes sometimes, but in the end, she always walked the right path. You don't look great. Regrow the arm and eye. One day, Sarah spoke. A satisfied smile traced her lips. When I feel I've truly fulfilled my duty, I'll restore them. Still not listening, huh? Well, that's just like her. Master and hero. That one-dimensional relationship was over now. In this long war ahead, it was time to build something new. Be happy. The last command of the master. I didn't know what that meant, but I thought I'd try. Master. I turned to the side. Anything's control window was flickering. She couldn't hold on much longer. The connection would drop soon. Up in the sky of the boundary, in the tiny window of a smartphone screen, anything was looking at me. Warning. The server is unstable. Prepare for disconnection. Of course, it's the end. Our paths were just too far apart. I try not to game so much next time. Your mom seemed pretty worried. Sure, games can help with stress, but only in moderation, so they don't mess with real life. Not that I'm one to talk. Whatever. Doesn't matter now. Hey, I had something to say before it ended. Change this thing for me. I picked up the warhorse figurine. Its head and legs were worn down from being touched so much. It wasn't even a statue anymore. Just a lump. Gift shop. Purchase. Warhorse figurine for 5,000 gold. Send warhorse figurine to Han as a gift. Clunk. Han receives the warhorse figurine and is pleased. I whistled as I took the new figurine into my hands. Then said, "Take care." Psst. Crackle. With a couple of bursts of static, anything's control window closed. Error. Connection lost. The drifting light overhead vanished. As I turned the figurine in my hands, I spoke. "Don't you guys think we should change Niflheim's emblem?" Yearnet blinked. I carefully tucked the figurine into the pouch behind my belt. The mountain goat is outdated, not cool at all, now that we're starting fresh. If you're talking about that toy in your hand, no thank you. Saris cleared her throat. Didn't you say you were reflecting earlier? That's a separate issue. Saris smiled at me. Psh, Philistines with no taste. I clicked my tongue. A distant cry echoed. I reached out my hand. Bifrost, planted in the ground, flew into my grip. No need to say anything. Everyone had already finished prepping for battle. Their faces, once carefree, were now taut with tension. I'm not alone. It was a strange feeling. Having someone beside me. A sensation I hadn't felt in ages. Almost ticklish. And with it, a new flame surged. There is an end. Someday this war will have a conclusion. There will come a time when victory and defeat are decided. Will I still be standing when that day comes? Obviously. A grin formed. Even alone, I'd always said the same thing. I don't fight battles I can't win. Of course, I'll be the one who ends this. I raised Bifrost high, and beside me, the other heroes leapt into battle.
Chapter 326. Why did I quit being a court mage? Crackle. The firewood blazed, casting flickering shadows across their faces. Iloka slipped off her gloves, her lips curling in a wry smile as she answered. Do you even need to ask? I never got the chance to show off my exceptional talent. Exceptional talent, huh? Velkist, the man leaning against a tree, grinned. His name was known even within the guild, a mercenary of rare renown, a true powerhouse. What, got a problem with that? Iloka shot back. You're decent enough at lighting fires, he teased. Crunch. Jenna Shirai, squatting by the campfire, tore a bite from a roasted deer haunch. The tender meat parted easily, juices filling her mouth. 3 daggers hung at her waist, a short bow slung across her back. And who are you two, anyway? Jenna asked, chewing. Even if I was clueless, you guys must have known what was going on. What situation are you talking about? I mean the fact that this place is dead quiet, Jenna said, gesturing around. Iloka let out a long sigh. I threw away my fancy title and came all the way down here, but this is nothing like I expected. Not a single chance to show off my brilliant magic. Don't you get plenty of chances to cook meat? Velkus quipped. Not that kind of chance, Iloka shrieked, her frustration boiling over. She was brimming with dissatisfaction. After agonizing for so long, she'd made the biggest decision of her life, only to have her expectations betrayed. There was nowhere to unleash the skills she had painstakingly honed. What is with this country? It was peaceful. Too peaceful. All the races that once clashed with humans had signed peace treaties with the Empire. Over a decade of prosperity had wiped out even the usual bandits. In such times, mercenary work was scarce. Catching petty thieves, finding runaway cats, working as waitstaff at an inn. At most, a handful of errands. The last one had been because Iloka lost her wallet and needed to pay for her lodging. It had been well over a decade since the silver-crowned empress, Phriasis I, began her reign. Under her rule, the Empire citizens lived in an era of true peace and prosperity. Everywhere you looked, all was calm. The streets rang with the laughter of children. Her name was Iloka Revel Strasur. She hailed from a once prestigious noble house. After throwing herself into the study of magic with rabid intensity, she had ascended to the seat of Imperial Court Mage, but at some point, a wave of emptiness overtook her. It felt as if something essential had gone missing from her life, something vital forgotten. So she had chosen to challenge herself, to fill whatever was missing in her heart. But even now, she couldn't say what that thing was. Why are you only asking questions without answering any? Basic manners say you should respond when someone tells you something. Iloka jabbed a finger at Velkist. He only shrugged. I have nothing to say. What kind of excuse is that? If I had to give a reason, it'd be that everything is too boring. Velkist tilted his head back, gazing up through the canopy of leaves and tangled branches at a sliver of night sky. Your turn, Iloka. Turned her eyes to the last member of their trio. Me? Jenna, still chewing, pointed to herself. I guess I was bored. That's your reason for becoming a mercenary? Iloka deadpanned. Seriously, these people are just like me. Mercenaries in peacetime really are a bunch of eccentrics. Even Edith, the guildmaster, had seemed a little off. This place is full of idiots. Iloka regretted it all. She never should have come. She should have been enjoying wine and steak in her luxurious estate right now. About a month ago, the 3 of them had met by chance in a remote city, and, just as randomly, they'd ended up traveling together. A coincidence on top of a coincidence on top of a coincidence. Until then, none of them had ever taken companions, but this time was different. It was like magic. None of them felt the slightest aversion to one another. It was as if they had fought life and death battles together in a past life. So, how far are we from the ruins? Iloka asked. The rumors had reached them about a week ago while they were idling without work. Valhalla? That's why we're here, remember? Iloka said. The legend of Valhalla. Somewhere in Tonya, there existed the ruins of an unnamed god. If you passed the trials of the ruins, you could depart to a new world. But it was only ever spoken of in rumor. Few dared to attempt it. Most mercenaries dismissed it as a fantasy, but these 3 were different. They immediately drew up a plan and set off on the journey. I have to prove my worth, to show that I'm exceptional, that I have the qualifications, that I'm a chosen genius. To who? She didn't know. Iloka shook her head vigorously. Ooh. Finally, Jenna rummaged through her bag and pulled out a small metallic object, a golden badge engraved with a mountain goat. Ooh. The badge emitted a faint glow in her hand. As Jenna caressed the badge, she spoke. It's reacting. We're close. It's not a fake, is it? Iloka narrowed her eyes at the badge. She'd asked where she got it, but never got a clear answer. Jenna always said she didn't remember. Sis, it's not fake. That's what I'm saying. It's suspicious. How could something so convenient exist? Just holding it guides us to the ruins, and you can't even remember where you got it? Well, maybe I did something great in my past life, Jenna whispered into Iloka's ear. Maybe the gods gave it to me? Iloka sighed deeply. And so the next day, the three of them packed up and continued on their way. They were deep in Tonia's far eastern region. A dense, suffocating jungle sprawled before them. If Iloka hadn't mastered wind magic, they might have died from heat stroke. Originally, she could only use flame magic, but through bone-crushing effort, she had awakened her affinity for wind. The three mercenaries pressed forward, guided by the badge's glow. Day turned to evening, evening to night, night again to morning. The journey stretched on. "This is the place," Velkist murmured. Beyond the jungle stood a high cliff. A crumbling temple nestled there. The markings match. Above the temple's entrance, a mountain goat was carved. It perfectly matched the symbol of Valhalla. This was the place they had been searching for. Velkist gripped the hilt of his sword. "If you pass the trial, you can go to a new world." "What kind of place do you think it is?" Jenna tilted her head. Iloka wagged her finger. "Hoo-hoo! Isn't it obvious?" "What? A place with tons of delicious food?" Velkist chuckled and stepped through the entrance, his figure vanishing into the dark corridor. Jenna followed with a sprint. "Hey, wait! We need to discuss a plan first!" Left alone, Iloka stomped her feet. "Seriously, these people don't even have basic common sense!"
But standing around wouldn't help. Iloka hurried after them. Magic lanterns lit up automatically as she entered the corridor. Inside, a broad passageway stretched ahead. The walls were carved with reliefs, a man wielding a sword, locked in combat with some monstrous being. The swordsman, his followers, the monsters they faced, all so vivid they seemed ready to come to life. This man! Iloka slowly reached toward the figure etched in stone. "Sis!" "What? What are you just standing there for? We're at the end already." Iloka ran ahead. At the end of the passage was a massive chamber. On the far end stood an enormous door. On either side, statues of armored warriors stood with swords raised. This the place? No doubt about it. Jenna held up the badge. Blinding golden light burst from it. "We finally made it," Jenna grinned. Rumble. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. Caught off guard, Iloka nearly lost her balance. "Warriors who would join the eternal war." The statue beside the door lit up, its eyes glowing. A majestic voice echoed from its mouth. "Face the challenge." Flash. A small stone door appeared on the chamber's right side. "Prove your worth." Clunk. The stone door slid open. "The unworthy shall not set foot upon the battlefield." So that door leads to the trial. Velkist peered into the opening. He had been ready for this all along. Well, at least I won't be bored. This world held nothing for him. No opponent could satisfy Velkist. Though this trial wouldn't fill the void in his heart, it would serve as fleeting entertainment. Velkist placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and strode forward. "You two just sit tight. I'll handle this. Let's see. Opus said I should do it like this." Velkist turned around. Jenna was fiddling with the badge, trying to insert it into a slot on the large door. What is she doing? After some struggling, Jenna shoved the badge into a narrow seam in the door. Creak, crash. The massive double doors at the front began to open. "If you pass the Warriors' Nova Light trial, then you shall..." Done. "You shall..." "Hurry, everyone, go on in." What are you thinking you're doing?" A spark of light shot from the statue's mouth. Amidst the scattering glow, a fairy with 2 pairs of wings appeared. Her cheeks flushed red as she screamed in outrage. "How dare you try to cheat on the trial?" "Eek!" Iloka recoiled in fright. "A monster! A monster!" "She's not a monster. Her name's Isele." "Who are you calling Isele? I have a proper name. Frey, thank you. Anyway, how did you open the door?" "Huh?" As she looked over the 3 of them one by one, the fairy's eyes widened. "Why are all of you here?" Jenna gave a playful wink. Frey turned to look straight at Jenna. You still have your memories? Oppa snuck over once before and told me exactly what to do if I ever wanted to come. Weren't you supposed to stay in the forest? I tried to sit still for a few years, but I just got itchy fingers. Clunk. The giant gate finished opening. Jenna looked back at the two behind her. Uni, Oppa, thanks for everything. Let's meet again over there. Beyond the massive door lay a garden. At its center, a radiant dimensional gate shimmered with brilliant light. Jenna Shirai, deploying! Jenna pushed off the ground and leapt gracefully, vanishing into the dimensional gate. Velkist and Alokas stood there dumbfounded. Ah, my poor fate. The fairy fluttered over to Velkist. Stardust from her wings sprinkled down onto his body. A faint light flashed over him. So that's how it was. Velkist turned toward the dimensional gate. I thought I could live an ordinary life, but I guess that wasn't possible after all. Sring. Velkist drew his sword, a satisfied smile forming on his lips. What the hell is going on? Where did Jenna go? What is that gate? And what even is this weird little fairy? So you can find out for yourself, mage. Sword lowered, Velkist stepped toward the gate. His figure slowly became engulfed in the light and vanished. At least give me an explanation. Aloka clenched her fists and shouted. Of course, there was no one left to answer her protest. Looks like you're the only one left, the fairy muttered as she casually picked her ear. Do whatever you want. Stay or go. Where did those two go? Who knows? You insolent little... As if I can't handle dimensional magic. Fuming, Aloka began to march forward. Admittedly, she was a complete novice when it came to dimensional spells. You're going too? Why not? Is there some reason I can't? I don't know about the other two, but you're going to struggle. You already dropped out once. What did you just say? Did you seriously call me a talentless, skillless insect just now? I never said that. So you dare to look down on me? Is that it? Aloka jabbed her finger toward the dimensional gate. Fine then, I'll show that fool on the other side the true power of this genius mage. Aloka, Revel, Strasser. Do you even know who's on the other side? At that moment, a hazy memory flashed before her eyes, but only for a second. Who cares? Fwap. Aloka pulled a fan from her dress and snapped it open. I'll make sure they know exactly who I am. Do whatever you like. Ooh, they better be ready. Snap. She folded the fan closed, then took 3 steps forward, and tripped over the hem of her own dress. Pretend you didn't see that. Flustered, Aloka scrabbled to her feet and stepped into the dimensional gate. Frey watched her receding back and let out a sigh. Looks like it's going to get noisy again. Aside from those 3, there didn't seem to be any other visitors. Rumble. The doors began to close. Maybe I should go too, curious to see what might happen. Frey flapped her 2 pairs of wings and floated toward the dimensional gate, to the place where her hero was waiting.
Chapter 327. An unnamed cafe, tucked away in a quiet alley. It was a small shop, selling nothing more than coffee and bread, without even a proper signboard to mark its presence. At the counter, the young owner wiped down a coffee cup, classical music drifting softly from the speakers. The gentle melody mingled with the hushed voices of high school girls chatting at a corner table. So, you know? Wait, really? Bright laughter blossomed on their still youthful faces. This wasn't the kind of place that attracted regulars. It was too small, too hidden, and most people preferred the comfort of well-known franchise chains. Even if someone came every day, it would only ever be 1 or 2. She was one of those rare few. Nuna. Huh? Are you even listening? She blinked, pulled from her thoughts, and turned her gaze forward. Sitting at a table outside was a young man, still more boy than adult. Her cousin, Jinho. He had just graduated high school and been accepted into a prestigious university, one whose name everyone would recognize, with top marks. What were you saying again? I'm going nuts. You're zoning out again. Jinho sighed, then continued. Auntie says you should go on a blind date. A blind date. A blind date? That plastic surgeon guy or whatever, last time, why did you turn him down? Didn't like his face? It's not like that. Before that, you turned down a judge. And before that, a corporate employee, a lawyer, a pro athlete. You've just been turning them down one after another. Auntie's getting more wrinkles by the day. Jinho Nuna. You don't want to get married, do you? I didn't say that. If you don't, then just say you don't, that you're not interested. It's not that I'm not thinking about it. Then is there someone you've got your eye on? Not really. So you're thinking about it, but there's no one you've set your sights on. What, do you need a chaebol prince or something? That's not it either. Jinho frowned, then lowered his voice. Don't tell me you're still hung up on that game. It shut down a year ago, you know. In a year, like 100 new games have come out. 100, 1,000 new games might be released, but there was nothing like that game. She murmured the thought in her heart. This is insane. I'm sorry. Do what you want. I can't force you to do something you hate. I'm sorry. I've got tutoring work. I'm heading out. Jinho left the cafe, busy with his side job. She was alone again. What a good time in life. She glanced at the lively high school girls, their laughter filling the air. She had once been like that too. Back then, it felt as if the world was her stage. That illusion shattered the moment she became an adult, and reality set in. Childish delusion, she muttered inwardly. What should she call what she experienced in that game? It had already been a year since Pick Me Up was forgotten. 4 seasons had passed, she'd been promoted at work, and her mother's white hairs had multiplied.
Han Israt. He was a character in a game. If she hadn't made a mistake, he would have died a meaningless death, caught in a fusion accident. But because of her error, he survived and continued to fight in his own way. Whenever life felt overwhelming, she found herself thinking back to that game. Some called it a dead game, others spat on it as trash. But to her, it was an experience more precious than any journey. They had felt alive. They fought to survive, mourned fallen comrades, and pressed on through every trial. But no one believed her. Of course not. Who would believe that characters in a game had truly lived and moved? She'd be lucky not to be called insane. She opened her phone's photo album. Screenshots of Han's exploits were neatly arranged. Han dangling from a sword plunged into a massive statue. Han escaping an exploding corridor. Han mourning a comrade's death. Han training relentlessly. Each photo came with her own notes. Am I an idiot? Even after a year, she couldn't forget. And likely, she never would. Not even until the day she died. It's just a game. The graphics weren't even impressive. The combat wasn't particularly fun. The monetization was outrageous, and in the latter days, frequent crashes made it barely playable. Her account had even been suspended on false charges of using macros she never touched. And yet, she couldn't forget. Over the past year, she had tried every mobile game she could find. But that feeling she had when playing Pick Me Up, she never felt it again. That sense of truly communicating with someone from another world. She reached into her coat and touched the envelope, the distinct texture of paper beneath her fingertips. Inside was the property transfer contract a lawyer had handed her a year ago. She still hadn't opened it, because one day she would have to return it to its rightful owner. Another day's ending. She looked out the window. The once quiet alley was now bustling with people coming and going. It was already the hour when office workers got off work. There weren't many customers in the cafe, but the noise from outside filled the space. Screech!
Amidst it all, an unnatural sound cut through the air. What the hell's that psycho? Wow! Shit! Who the hell drives a car down a back alley? Thud, clatter, boom. The sound of something violently colliding. The schoolgirls fell silent. What was that? Something must have happened. Just as the girl in glasses stood up, Kya! Crash! A black sports car shattered the cafe's front window and burst inside. Splinters of tables and chairs flew through the air. Fine china cups shattered on the shelves. The open-top sports car, having plowed through everything, finally came to a stop in the center of the cafe. She quietly stood up from her seat. The sports car had stopped right in front of her. Its black exterior was scratched and battered. The man in the driver's seat lowered his sunglasses, peering over the rims. Not at home or the office, huh? So you were loafing around in a place like this. Who are you? Just get in. The door lifted upward and the man ushered her into the passenger seat. Is like a movie shoot? He kind of looks like an actor. A criminal? The high school girls huddled in the corner, whispering. Only the owner stared blankly at her ruined cafe. Sorry about that. Been a while since I drove. Just charge it to this card. The man placed a golden card on the table. Screech! The sports car spun sideways, both passengers inside. The car made a small S-turn, then with a thunderous roar, shot out of the alley. Perhaps everyone had already evacuated, because the back alley was now completely empty.
Mr. Loki, a woman's voice came from the navigation system. This is a no-vehicle zone. Did you not realize? They all look the same. I drive forward, and people move out of the way. They're not moving. They're fleeing. Same thing, your net. The man grinned and pressed the accelerator. Vroom! The sports car surged onto the main road.
This is our first time meeting like this, the man said, turning the wheel. Why weren't you answering your phone? Not at work either? Shouldn't you be on the clock? She'd glanced at her phone. The missed calls were all from unfamiliar numbers. Well, I took the afternoon off. You don't seem sick. Bet you just ditched out of annoyance. If you don't want to get fired, get it together. The rushing wind slapped her face. It didn't feel real. A man had just driven a car into the cafe, kidnapped her, and now they were speeding toward some unknown destination. Or just quit. You can loaf around like a pig if you want, as long as you're spending the money I gave you. Screech! At an intersection, the sports car veered sharply to the right. The light was red. I've detected multiple patrol cars approaching from 100 meters. Why are they chasing us? Because the moment you arrived, you rammed the police station. Did I do that? With a hint of irritation, the man muttered, I was going to head somewhere with no people anyway. Wait. Whee! Whee! The sirens of the police cars wailed. Finally, her senses returned. She and the mysterious man were driving the wrong way down a 4-lane road. Who are you? Han Israt. The man finally spoke. Han Israt? Impossible. Her jaw dropped. He looked just like the hero she once knew. The black hair, the confident eyes, even his signature expression. But Han Israt was a character from a game. No way. Could it really be? The man shifted gears as he spoke. I wasn't planning to come, but watching how you were living changed my mind. I never thought you'd be such a dumbass that you couldn't even use what was handed to you. Screech! The sports car, halfway off the road, grazed a street tree. Broken wood fragments flew into the seats. At this rate, they will catch up. So is the drive over? If you use your power, we can escape. I don't intend to throw around my power lightly. The car suddenly turned and backed into a narrow alley. Before it could crash into the alley's dead end, the car came to a complete stop. "Seems like." The man smiled and said, "If we're going to talk, we'll need to go somewhere safe. The choice is yours. If you want to scream that some lunatic kidnapped you and run for it, that's fine too." He got out of the driver's seat and stepped away from the car. She remained seated in the passenger seat. Thoughts and memories swirled chaotically through her mind. Han Israt. She looked up at the man. He was exactly as she had imagined Han would be. Except instead of leather armor, now he wore a top-tier tailored suit. A dream. It's real, the man declared with certainty. Then, in a soft voice, he said, "It's been a while, anything. Han, I've come to return the favor." He pulled something from inside his coat and tossed it to her. She caught it reflexively. A small figurine in the shape of a warhorse. Only then she knew for sure. She moved from the passenger seat into the driver's seat. The man, watching her, took the passenger seat in turn. "We apologize, Master Anything." A fluent Korean voice flowed from the car's navigation system. She placed her hands on the steering wheel. "Let's get going then." The man adjusted his sunglasses. Just before pressing the accelerator, she remembered she didn't have a driver's license.
But that didn't matter at all.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.